This is a story of absolute and total incompetence, and also tells a story about how priorities on the left has led to this devastation.
You know, I know firsthand that this was one of the most taxed areas in the country, $50,000 a year in property taxes alone, and water ran out.
In fact, it's much worse than anybody realizes at this point. In fact, the story is much bigger than people realize.
California's catastrophic wildfires burned through more than 40,000 acres, turning thousands of homes and businesses to ash. The roaring blazes forced more than 200,000 residents to flee their homes and left at least 28 people dead. As the ferocious flames tore through suburbs, firefighters were left battling flames without water. In this Sky News special report, we look back at the disastrous decisions by California's elected officials that resulted in tragedy. Sky News Digital Originals presents California's Catastrophe. On January 2, 2025, the National Weather Service issued a strong warning of extreme fire weather conditions in Los Angeles. 2 days later, LA Mayor Karen Bass, who previously promised Angelenos she wouldn't travel abroad, fled to Ghana. Instead of staying to mobilise against the fires, Karen Bass was attending a cocktail party to celebrate the swearing in of Ghana's new president, when the worst fires in LA's history began to take hold.
What is most concerning to me is our first responders and our firefighters who are trying to battle this. There's no water in the Palisades. There's no water coming out of the fire hydrants. This is an absolute mismanagement by the city. It's not the firefighters' fault, but it's by the city. And I'm going to be very honest. We've got a mayor that's out of the country, and we've got a city that's burning, and there's no resources to put out fires. So if you look at your pictures, you don't see the firefighters there because there's nothing they can do. And it looks like we're in a third world country here. Mm-hmm. And we've got a lot of tough questions that we need to ask the mayor and the city council and our representatives and the county representatives. Why didn't you work to mitigate this?
On January 7, a series of ferocious wildfires exploded out of control. The Palisades, Eaton and Hearst fires grew larger, destroying some of the most expensive real estate in the world. When Karen Bass returned to Los Angeles, this was her message to residents who were losing everything.
Have you no response to that? Do you owe citizens an apology for being absent while their homes were burning? Do you regret cutting the fire department budget by millions of dollars, Madam Mayor? Have you nothing to say today? Have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today? Elon Musk says that you're utterly incompetent. Are you considering your position?
By the time officials began mobilising against the fires, it was too late, and it was clear California failed to prepare.
I have covered wildfires in this particular area. My entire adult life, I've covered wildfires. And I can tell you, when we are aware of catastrophic winds, such as we saw approaching, we know about 14 days in advance, and it's called the red flag warnings. We know that this is happening. And in my experience as a reporter, we were always dispatched to these vulnerable fire areas along with firefighters. Where were they? These were some of the highest winds we had seen, I think, in record times. But where were the resources to catch any particular hotspots or potential arsonist?
This is not new. Like, I'm not coming up with things that are brand new ideas. These are management of forests that have been done throughout the country. There's forests all over the country that are also dried out that haven't had this level of devastation. In Montana and Idaho, areas in the West that have done a far better job mitigating and controlling for these things.
When firefighters were deployed, some were left battling blazes without water. Astonishingly, a key reservoir that was built to protect the Pacific Palisades was empty at the time the fires broke out. The Santa Ynez Reservoir normally holds 117 million gallons of water, Yet it was closed so a tear in its cover could be fixed, something the LA Fire Department and LA County officials were not aware of.
You look at a failure of prevention and of rapid early response before the fires. You look at the failure of the reservoir. Those are two big factors that, had you solved for those, then I think the fire would not nearly have been as bad as it was.
Are you not aware of a reservoir being... A reservoir is not like this underground cavern. Sometimes you get water, from underground. California gets its water primarily from these large, massive reservoirs. They're like lakes, right? Talk about incompetence.
When Gavin Newsom fronted up to the media, his focus was to deflect.
The reservoirs are completely full, the state reservoirs here in Southern California. That mis and disinformation, I don't think advantages or aids any of us. Responding to Donald Trump's insults, we would spend another month. I'm very familiar with them. Every elected official that he disagrees with, very familiar with them.
We do know, though, from reporting here locally that one reservoir that serves the Palisades was not full.
And that's exactly what triggered my desire to get the investigation, to understand what was happening with that local reservoir.
The empty reservoir was not the only thing that limited the fire department's ability to respond. When the fires broke out, 100 fire trucks sat idle, waiting for repairs. Last year, Karen Bass made the decision to cut the fire department's budget by $17.5 million, money that was supposed to go towards repairing those fire trucks.
Did the city of Los Angeles fail you and your department and our city?
It's my job to stand up as a chief and exactly say, justifiably, what the fire department needs to operate to meet the demands of the community.
Did they fail you?
That is our job, and I tell you, that's why I'm here. So let's get us what we need so our firefighters can do their jobs.
Did they fail you?
Yes.
And the smoking gun in it all is that the LA County Fire Chief had sent a letter, an open letter on December 4th to the mayor, raising the alarm about the cuts and specifically about the impact that the cuts would have on wildfire prevention and response.
These budget cuts happen. Where the money go to? Well, they went to leftist priorities. They went to DEI issues. They went to spending on homelessness issues, which obviously has been a complete fail for both California and Los Angeles. The money has been burned and that, obviously pun intended, and wasted. And not gone to the resources we need for this kind of disaster. Look, there are stories going out that they ran out of water in the fire hydrants, literally. That these firefighters, brave firefighters, are looking to take these fires out, and the fire hydrants have run dry because we have totally spent our money and our priorities in the wrong place. Look, it'd be one thing if they cut the money, $25 million, made the place more efficient. Look, one could convince me you could spend less money and still fight fires. But if you haven't done that, right? You've spent less money. The firefighters did not have the resource to fight this fire, and then you wasted it on these leftist agendas, which have totally failed the city and the state. That's where we find ourselves in. So, yeah, look, I think Karen Bass finds herself in a very precarious position because people realize that she's responsible. They had a poll that came out recently that said most Los Angelinos hold her responsible for these fires. Look, that when she was in wherever she was, Ghana. Look, I know that mayors and governors go on these boondoggle trips outside the country. I don't understand why. I don't think they should. I think there's no reason for them to do it. They're boondoggle trips. They're just to have a good time. I don't blame her for not being in LA at the time, okay? Because whatever, she was on this stupid trip. But the fact is, when she came back, she was completely tone deaf. She was combative. She was defensive. There was no reason to be. You've got to take responsibility for things, and she simply wouldn't take it. And people in Los Angeles feel that, and they know it. And I'm not sure she's going to win election again.
Despite being located in one of the most fire-prone areas in the country, staffing for LA's fire department has been shrinking, while the number of fire calls has been going up. LA's fire department has less staff than almost any other major US city. Billionaire developer Rick Caruso, who ran against Karen Bass for mayor in 2022, has spent years sounding the alarm that the fire department is under-resourced.
I've been going around the city talking to firefighters and talking to paramedics. I've been talking to residents, and there's a deep concern throughout this city that the paramedics and the firefighters are understaffed because their budget has not been restored. from 15 years ago when it was cut back. We have fire stations throughout this city that aren't mobilized because they don't have the staffing to do it, and it's just wrong.
While LA officials were stripping millions of dollars in funding from their fire department ahead of one of the most destructive wildfires in California's history, hundreds of thousands of dollars were allocated to fund DEI projects such as a gay men's chorus and a transgender cafe. At the same time, California was failing to clean its forest floors and take measures to reduce the risk of fires from burning out of control.
A complete and total mismanagement, oftentimes because of leftist priorities, has also been part of the problem. I'll tell you what I mean. So, for example, one of the key mitigation efforts that you need in order to stop wildfires is, for example, you have to rake the forest. I know it sounds ridiculous, but you have to clear out the underbrush that has fallen down, that is essentially kindling for fire. They have not done that. You have to do what they call backburning. You actually have to induce controlled fires in order to make sure that the stuff that will go up on its own uncontrollably has already been burnt out. They haven't done that. In fact, Gavin Newsom has talked about the efforts they have put in. He overestimated it by over 700%. 700% overestimation how much money and time was actually spent there. And then you have environmental groups who have sued the state of California for this exact issue, saying you shouldn't backburn, you shouldn't rake, you have to keep them completely natural as they are. And all these things came together and culminated into the disaster that we see now.
And if you're not going to have those fires doing that, then you have to mechanically rake the forest floor like President Trump's talking about. So he's absolutely right on those types of forests. And he's also right that Gavin Newsom did a terrible job on it. He cut the forest budget in 2020. We roasted him for it. All of us, and many of us did. Yeah. They did increase the CAL FIRE budget. They have done better on clearing the forest floors. But then you get to this shrubland, the chaparral, and there it's just two main events. The first is just reducing the vegetation around the electrical wires. And then the second is reducing the vegetation around the homes and creating fire breaks.
LA's fire department is also being criticised for its focus on DEI.
You want to see somebody that responds to your house, your emergency, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, that looks like you. It gives that person a little bit more ease, knowing that somebody might understand their situation better. Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire, which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
What they've also done is they've brought DEI into the firefighter organization also, where they're trying to prioritize bringing women and minorities in, which, by the way, I'm not saying it can't do a good job, but you're not looking to prioritize that. You're looking to prioritize the best people possible. That best people may be a black person, a Hispanic person, a woman, a white person. I don't know. But you don't want to force that, right? Certainly when it comes to firefighters. And
the cost of California's devastating wildfires is estimated to be more than $200 billion. Many residents have lost everything. Now some Hollywood celebrities are speaking out against government officials, revealing they regret voting for Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom.
I'm just asking that our politicians come back to common sense. Your first priority is to keep the citizens safe. And we're not safe. I've got friends leaving Los Angeles every day because they don't feel safe, because of crime, because of homelessness. It's not fair, it's not right. We have the money, we have the tax revenue, we just spend it on saving the smelt fish or bullet trains to nowhere. Can we please, at least if we're gonna do that stuff, can we double the budget of the Los Angeles Fire Department and the Los Angeles Police Department? Can we have 15,000 police officers instead of 8,000 police officers? It's just so frustrating because this is happening to good people all over this city. And of course people are gonna rob people because they know there's no consequences. Of course they're gonna steal their car. So please, can we just come back to common sense? Newsom, I voted for you. I regret that now because you're just worried about getting reelected and placating your base, and you're not worried about your most important responsibility. And same with you, Karen Bass, and that is protecting the people of this city and this state.
While California's elected officials failed to keep residents safe, much of the media's focus has been around climate change. But experts say it's clear climate change did not cause these fires.
You could have these fires without having climate change, and you can have climate change and not have these fires. In other words, climate change is not the cause of the fires. To say that climate change plays a role, it's the same thing as saying that gravity plays a role. Is gravity playing a role in the fires? Well, sure. Like, it's hard to imagine what the fires would be like without gravity. All else being equal, obviously, climate change, warmer temperatures, you're going to have, drier wood. But we've had warm temperatures in the past, and we've had dry temperatures in the past, and we've had winds in the past. So when you interview the top scientist on this, John Keeley, I just interviewed him, he's very clear this was not caused by climate change. These are ignition-driven fires.
It's suspected at least one of the fires may have been started by a homeless arsonist. California officials are under pressure to explain how they've failed to address the homelessness crisis in the state, which has been growing under Gavin Newsom's leadership.
California has spent $24 billion on homelessness, directly on homeless. That doesn't count the fire departments, by the way, since Gavin Newsom took office in 2019, and homelessness has increased by 40%.
Just days after being sworn into office, President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump were on the ground in Los Angeles, surveying the damage and speaking to victims. The president clashed with Karen Bass on live television as he urged her to use her powers as mayor to allow residents back to their homes as quickly as possible.
We want you to be safe, and we want you to be back in your homes immediately.
But the people are willing to clean out their own debris. It doesn't cost a lot.
Yes, and they can.
You should let them do it, because by the time you hire contractors, it's going to be 2 years.
If a family...
The people are willing to get a dumpster and do it themselves and clean it out.
And they can.
There's not that much left. It's all incinerated.
That's right.
And, it's just going to take a long time if you do. You can do some of it, but a lot of these people, I know that guy right there that's talking. I know my people. You'll be on that thing tonight, throwing the stuff away, and your site it'll look perfect within 24 hours. And that's what he wants to do. He doesn't want to wait around for 7 months till the city hires some demolition contract that's going to charge him $25,000 to do his lot. Yeah. I think you have emergency powers just like I do. And I'm exercising my emergency powers. You have to exercise them also.
I did exercise them.
Because I looked, you have a very powerful emergency power, and you can do everything within 24 hours.
Yes.
As residents begin the long journey of returning and rebuilding, Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass are facing calls to resign over their handling of one of the most destructive wildfires in California's history.
They're losing power across the United States. There's a red wave happening 2 years later than we thought, but it's happening now. And they're trying desperately to deflect in any way possible. And now they're going to this whole thing, it's all fake news, misinformation, disinformation. It's gross. It's been played out. Everyone is sick of it. No one believed it initially. No one believed it when it came to COVID. No one believes it now. And you're just making yourself seem like a fool. You're doubling down on the stupidity that has really cost you power. And it's going to cost him power now. Look, he's desperate. Look, this is a man who thinks he's going to be the next president of the United States. And frankly, he's good at being a politician, right? He has been able to spin failure after failure into deflecting it to other people. So I give him kudos for that. But he still thinks he's going to be the Democratic nominee. By the way, I want to point something out also. Karen Bass, this failed mayor, was in the short list for the vice presidential slot for Biden the first time around. It shows you how weak their bench is. She's a complete and utter failure.
Do you have any confidence going forward that things will be different in places like California? And is it really just getting back to common sense, managing forest and also making sure there's enough water?
Look, the optimistic side of me says yes. I know people laugh at me when I say that California could come back to the Republican side of the slate, certainly at least be purple. Well, look, all California, every single congressional district in California, like the rest of the country, while they didn't vote for Trump, they all shifted to the right. Every single district, from the bluest district to the reddest district, they all had a slight shift to the right. So do I think that I have hope that they may come to their senses? I do. I'm eternally optimistic, Gabriella. If not, I would drink myself to death, okay? I have to be optimistic. Do I think it's gonna happen in the short term? Probably not, but the signs have been there. Look, the LA elected an incredibly leftist DA. In fact, they imported the failed crime mitigation efforts of San Francisco, which has become a hell on earth, to Los Angeles. And all Gasco, that DA that they brought in and they elected, all he did was make California worse. Well, they booted him out, okay? So did they learn their lesson? I'm hoping so. Again, the polling is showing that right now, if the election were held today, Caruso, essentially a Republican, would win.
And this could be a moment for the mayor to really rise up and show some empathy and compassion and humility and maybe a tear or two, because I think people all over the world who don't even maybe know anyone in Los Angeles, when they see what they're seeing, the damage and how many lives have been changed forever because of these fires, they even can get emotional. So the fact that the woman who is running this city has not really shown any empathy or compassion, in my point of view. We haven't really seen her. She's just getting very defensive, and she and the governor, I think, are deflecting. They're putting the blame in other people, but they're not taking any accountability. This is their city and state, and there's a lot that went wrong. This never should have gotten this out of hand, in my opinion.